Next, we'll talk about ways of building an ADU. There are many ways of building an ADU. These are the three primary ways we'll discuss here, and we'll also describe how we do it. The conventional way to build an ADU or a home is what's called stick framing. What's basically done is you take a bunch of 2x4s and you hammer them and you create a frame out of them. So if this was a real house, and if I opened up the drywall on this wall, behind the wall you'll see a frame like what we are showing here, and this is built with a bunch of 2x4s nailed together. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing either ADU construction or building an entire home is what we call using a framing package. Bay Area labor is very expensive, labor rates are crazy, so what we do is we get a whole frame of an ADU or of an entire home built outside of the Bay Area in a place where labor is much cheaper. The framing package arrives on an 18-wheeler. If it's an ADU up to 1,000 square feet, it arrives in one 18-wheeler. And if it's a bigger home, it can take many 18-wheelers. And once it arrives, we've built the foundation and the subfloor by then. Once we receive the framing package, we can put together an ADU up to 1,000 square feet in about a day and a half or 2 days. So you're able to walk into each room in a day and a half or 2 days. If it's a home as big as a 5,000 square foot home, it takes us about 2 weeks to do that. But it's very, very quick. And while this is built in a factory, while we order it, we spend the time to build the foundation, make the utility connections, and build the subfloor. There are 4 types of utility connections that are needed, whether you're building a house or an ADU. It's water, sewer, electric, and gas. Gas is optional. Not everyone wants gas going into an ADU, but those are the 4 key utility connections that are used to connect the ADU to the primary dwelling. And all those connections are underground. That's what the cities want. So it's all done in trenches. Framing package was the next one that I described. The third one is prefab. In a prefab environment, basically the foundation is built, then the entire unit comes on a truck, and it's generally lifted with a crane and put on the foundation. So in this one, once it's connected to the utility connections, you actually have a home you can live in right away from day 1 or day 2 once the connections are done, and this is the quickest. Now each of these methods has its advantages and disadvantages, which we'll cover in the next slide. So with conventional stick framing, this may be a bit small for folks in the back, but I'll read the important ones. The conventional stick framing, the advantage of that is it's a system that's understood well by city governments, by inspectors, by contractors. Everybody knows what this is, and it's pretty easy. It's a standard way of doing things. It also offers unlimited customization. You start out having a door here. If you change your mind and if you want to move the door within reason, it can be done fairly quickly while you're in the framing stage. So it gives you that unlimited customization. You can change windows, window sizes, and things like that. The disadvantage of conventional stick framing is it takes longer because you're nailing each 2x4 one at a time, and it also is a bit more expensive because you're using expensive Bay Area labor to do that. That's another disadvantage of that. And then for certain units, you also would have to hire a structural engineer who's going to do structural calculations and submit to the city during the permit process. So that takes time, and it's more expensive. And then for pricing, people are generally charging $380 a square foot to as high as $670 or $700 a square foot in the high net worth zip codes that we've seen. So that's one method, that's conventional stick framing. With the second method, the framing package, where the entire frame gets built off-site and it's brought to the job site on an 18-wheeler, with that one, we're able to save you about 12 to 15% of the total project cost because we are not paying the crazy Bay Area labor charges to build the framing package. And then we save time because while we build the foundation and make the utility connection, the factory is building the frame, and once the frame arrives, it gets stood up very, very quickly. A day and a half is what I was suggesting earlier. And then there's little or no waste at the job site. We are not really cutting wood as we do in conventional framing. The frame comes in as a set of Lego blocks and they get assembled very, very quickly. They're built to California building codes, so there's no issue with inspections, and it's fully certified to be built in California and to put it at the job site. And then the materials are usually of higher quality in a framing package because the factory is buying the material in very, very large quantities as opposed to building one ADU at a time. The factory is running 6 to sometimes 7 days a week, and they're just getting very large amounts of material, so it's cheaper for them. The customization is also practically unlimited. Even though a framing package arrives, you can still make changes to it because you have the exposed wood and you can make certain changes to it. The disadvantage of framing packages is that people aren't used to it. City inspectors may not have seen it before. The city's planning and building departments may not have seen it before, so they may not quite understand what it is. Once they see it going in and once they see it getting erected, they get excited because it's so quick and there's no waste at the job site. The cities love that. The other disadvantage of framing packages is because you place an order with the factory is building that, you're placed in a queue. So the time of your delivery depends on how busy the factory is. If the factory is really busy, it may take you 3 months to receive the framing package from the time you order it, but we use that time to build the foundation and make the utility connection, so your time is not wasted. You actually are ahead overall. With framing packages, we are able to build you an ADU between $300 to $400 a square foot. We actually look for ways to even bring that number lower than that. But compared to what people are charging with conventional stick framing, it's actually quite an attractive cost for that. With prefab, you save a lot more time because the entire unit, the entire ADU is built off-site and is brought in and just placed in place with a crane. It includes almost everything. Your kitchen cabinets are there, your kitchen sink is there, so pretty much everything is there. All the utility connections, all the finishes are there, electrical finishes and plumbing finishes, and there's little or no waste at the job site. The disadvantage is you really can't make any changes, or if you do, they're very, very expensive. So you can't change your mind once the design is done. Once you've sent it to the factory, there's not much scope for making any changes. The other disadvantage is it may not work in all locations. I've been to customer job sites where their backyard is surrounded by tall trees. You don't have enough room to bring a crane in, lift a big structure with a crane and put it over the tall trees. The tall trees may be 40, 45 feet tall. It doesn't work that way. Or you have no access to the backyard, or the house is wide considering the lot, and there's no access on the sides, so there's no room for you to bring this big structure and put it somewhere. So those are some of the disadvantages. And of course, you have a factory schedule because it gets built in a factory. So if you place an order for a prefab unit, you have to wait until your turn comes and then they build it for you. And people are charging almost, thereabouts $400 a square foot for the prefab units. We'll move on quickly, and then we'll certainly leave room for you at the end to ask any questions. So next we'll talk about how you plan your ADU project. What are the key things to consider? First question always is soft costs and hard costs. Does everyone know the difference between soft costs and hard costs, or should I describe it real quick? Okay. I assume everyone knows the difference. So your total cost of building an ADU is your soft costs plus the hard costs. So understand what that is, understand what your soft costs are. Soft costs are what you pay before any construction starts, hard costs are the construction costs. Now for your hard costs, the key costs, as Spenser mentioned earlier, they go into your foundation, they go into your utility connections, they go into your trenching, and then if you have some exotic finishes, the finishes also could cost a lot of money. The interesting thing that I'm talking about here, and I'll cover on the next slide, is the smaller the ADU is, the more expensive it is on a dollar per square foot basis. So if you think about it for a minute, let's compare a 400 square foot ADU to an 800 square foot ADU. They need the same utility trenches if they're the same distance from the house. They need the same sink, they need the same hot water heater, they may need the same HVAC. So all these are fixed costs for these two ADUs, but the bigger one, you're able to amortize the cost over a bigger square footage, so it's actually cheaper. You'll see that on the next slide. So my recommendation is you figure out your budget, you figure out what your city requirements are. I quickly looked at 3 different cities in this area: San Mateo, San Bruno. I've built an ADU in San Bruno, by the way. San Mateo, San Bruno, and Burlingame, they allow you to build ADUs as big as 640 square feet. So whatever you build, whatever these factors are, you're amortizing these over 640 square feet. But a 400 square foot ADU will be more expensive than a 640 square foot ADU on a dollar per square foot basis. With that, I'll go to the next slide. But the recommendation is figure out what your costs are, figure out the biggest ADU you can build within your budget, and then find a reliable general contractor to build it for you. So this is how the costing happens based on what I described earlier. You have fixed costs. Let's figure out whose phone that is. Good. Okay. So you have fixed costs such as trenching, you have fixed costs such as utility connections, fixed costs such as your foundation, and then within that you can start to figure out the bigger the ADU gets, the cheaper it gets. And we've given you some approximations of how much we charge for building ADUs at certain square footage. And then the bigger the ADU gets, from 400 square feet to all the way to 1,000, the cost drops from a dollar per square foot basis. You'll have these slides, you can do the numbers and look at how it fits your budget. And then in terms of financing the ADU project, there's so many different ways we see our customers financing ADU projects. Some of them built from savings. As Spenser mentioned earlier, if you build from savings, of course, you're not paying any interest. Your return on the ADU could be as high as 13% cash on cash return. And some people borrow from HELOC. The example we provided earlier includes payments back to HELOC, and still you're cash flow positive on the overall project. Some people also borrow from home equity loans or lines of credit. Some people get construction loans. There's certain requirements to be met if you're getting a construction loan. And then some people can borrow from private investors or sometimes friends and family. If it's private investors or what are called hard money lenders, the interest rate is slightly higher. And then there's some startups also in the Bay Area that are doing something interesting with regards to ADU financing. Some of them will give you all the money for the ADU up front, then you pay them back over time, or they own the ADU, and when you sell the lot, the ADU and the house, they get the money back plus the appreciation. So all these models we're seeing in the Bay Area about financing ADUs, those models are coming from startups. The other thing I wanted to talk about is Spenser and I consider our business to be a one-stop shop. Coming from the tech background that we have, we're used to solving problems, and as we looked at ADUs, we started to think, when customers start to go down that path, they have all these questions, they have all this complexity to deal with. Why don't we solve each of these issues one by one? And that's what we've been doing. One of the key issues customers face is, what should be the design of my ADU? Who's going to do it? Do I need to hire an architect? Do I need to hire a designer? How would an ADU look in my backyard? So when we have our first customer meeting, we basically get their address. Based on their address, we figure out all the city rules that we'll be able to meet with their project. We figure out what design would work in that customer's backyard while meeting the city rules, and we take that design to them. So in our first meeting itself, and we generally can take 4 to 5 designs to them that will work in their backyard. So within our first meeting, we've saved them months and months of time. And basically, we light their imagination with what could be possible in their backyards. That speeds up the whole process. And once they like something, and a customer could say, well, I like this in this design, I don't like that in that design, and I like this in the other design, we can also merge these. And then we turn over to one of our proven designers, and the designers we've worked with before that knows their city rules, that works in their city, and the designer takes the project forward. We help the customers get permits. So all this is done very, very quickly. Because we specialize in it, we've done it many times, we know how various cities are operating. So that's one way we get our customers ahead. We have 77 full ADU floor plans, and then we have some architectural books which have as many as 360 plans, I think. So we can give you practically unlimited choices depending on your preferences, your backyard, and the city rules that we both have to meet. Now, as Spenser mentioned, people are building ADUs for various reasons. What are the factors you can optimize for if you're building ADUs for various reasons? Some of these, I must say, would not work in some of the neighboring cities. For example, in cities such as San Jose, people are now building ADUs with 2 bedrooms. In some of the local cities, they don't allow you to build ADUs with 2 bedrooms. There are ways around that which we can discuss offline. But if it's a rental unit, a unit with 2 bedrooms will definitely fetch you more rent than a unit with a single bedroom. And pretty much you only can have 1 bathroom in the ADUs. And then if you're building one for older parents or in-laws, you can make the ADU more or less ADA compliant. We do that as well. The in-laws may have certain lifestyle choices. They may like cooking as opposed to kids if they were living in the ADU. The in-laws may like gardening, or they may have some other hobbies for which they may need something in the ADU. So all that can be arranged. If your ADU is for renters, you likely need a separate internet connection for them, so their web searches and your web searches are kept separate. That also becomes a factor. If the ADU is your future home, you can select some finishes and some design aspects to meet your preferences. So whenever you move into the ADU, it pretty much will be done and ready for you. And then for children, if you have college age kids living in the ADU, you may need to provide some privacy, you may need some peace and quiet. So all that can be factored in. We can have the external walls of the ADU made with 2x6s instead of 2x4s. You get extra 2 inches. We can pack extra insulation, have dual pane windows or triple pane windows, make the ADUs very, very quiet. We can build ADUs right next to the freeway, and you wouldn't know inside the ADU that you're right next to the freeway. We can make them so quiet with some of these methods I just mentioned. And then some people build an ADU before they sell the home, thereby increasing the square footage of the both the primary dwelling and the ADU, and the home increases in value. But for that, you need to have low-cost finishes that look good but don't cause a dent in your budget. You may need some landscaping around the ADU to make it look really pretty and desirable to the buyers. So that's one way we can optimize an ADU that you're building not to live in, but building to sell with the home. As we talk to customers, we see that they have a bunch of questions for us, and I've listed some of these questions here so you can see what people grapple with once they start building an ADU or start thinking about an ADU. Should they hire an architect? Should they hire a soils engineer? Do they need to hire a structural engineer, a civil engineer? Do they need to hire a Title 24 processor? Where do they find these people? Are these people reliable? So what we do is we have our network of these folks. We've worked with them on multiple projects. We know how each one of them behaves. We can send you to the right person within our network. It's a proven network. Thereby, we are reducing risk for you, and we are saving time and money. Because we send multiple customers to these folks, they also give us a break on the pricing. So that's another way we're able to help you. I've already talked about how big of an ADU you can build. Of course, we can talk offline if you have any specific questions about that. People also ask, where do I start the discussion with my city? How do I deal with the city? How do I get my permits? All those things I've never done before. I don't understand. So we help them. We help our customers with all of these things, and so on and so on. The last one is interesting, which is, how do I choose among so many options? What flooring do I need? What type of cabinets should I get? What should be the countertop? What should my appliances be? Where do I find my appliances? All these things. Should I use an electric instant hot water heater or a gas powered one? Should I put an HVAC in the ADU? How will the entry be? Will I have steps? Should I have a ramp for ADU compliance? So we help you sort through all these questions because we've done this many times before. Working with cities, planning and building departments. This is also an important one, so we thought we'd give you some interesting do's and don'ts. The first one is, make sure you follow the laws of your city. Don't ask for exceptions. And why is that? If you go to the city and ask them for, first of all, you have to prove that you know the rules. We can show you how to do that. But then if you ask for exceptions, then the city will say, why should I give you an exception? Because tomorrow this other person will come and they'll ask for an exception. Day after tomorrow this other person will come and they'll ask for a different exception. The cities don't want to deal with that. So what you don't want to do is to break any of their rules or ask for any exceptions. The rules are mostly clear for most of these cities. They have specific pages, websites for ADUs. Understand the rules. We can help you understand the rules and build something that works with the rules, but don't ask for exceptions. Cities will just waste your time if you do that, or they'll flatly say no and make you go away. And then the cities want to see certain details in the plans, so you work with a designer that knows how that city works, that puts the relevant details. Because of the way we work, we sometimes go through the planning process in 15 minutes because we know what the city wants. We put that in the plans. Each time the planner asks for something, we show them where it is in the plans. We're done very quickly. So those are some examples that we have because we work very, very closely with multiple cities. And then understand what documents the cities need at each stage, understand how much money the city needs in each stage. There are different fees that you have to pay at different stages. And then unfortunately, as you work with your city staff, you also should expect inconsistent answers sometimes, because one person knows something, the other person doesn't know anything. They're afraid to tell you that they don't know, so they'll make up an answer for you, and it may be wrong. So that's something else that we also deal with a lot. City and city inspectors often don't know their own rules. And then don't lose your patience. Sometimes you may think the city guys are being very unreasonable. Sometimes you may think you know more than they do, and that may be true, but don't lose your patience. Just work with the process. They're usually overworked, and that's why. Then I've given you some ideas of the city costs at the bottom. And then working with a general contractor, I encourage our customers to engage with us as early as possible so we can start optimizing from the very beginning. We optimize for time, we optimize for money, for their budget, so we can start optimizing as soon as we hear about what the customer wants to do. And also be realistic about your budget. Try to figure out all the costs up front. A good general contractor will be very transparent and will give you an idea of all the costs up front. A good general contractor would not want to deliver a surprise to you. I have some YouTube videos. If you search for Kamal the Builder on YouTube, you'll find that I have posted videos on what a good general contractor is about, and you can find out and make sure that your contractors measure up to that bar. And then a good general contractor will help you plan all these things up front so that it reduces surprises and it reduces costs that may creep in. I'm very proud to say each time we've done a budget, we've never exceeded the budget. So our customers are very, very happy with us. We have 5-star reviews on Yelp from each of our customers because we follow these guidelines. We want to make sure we reduce risk at every stage and we don't have any surprises for our customers. Our customers hate surprises. For those of you in the room who have customers, you know they hate surprises too. And then of course, also understand that there are certain times when decisions are needed. So if a decision is needed and you're not making the decision, it may cause money and time, because you're not making a decision, something gets stopped, something gets stuck. So that's never a good thing. And also remember that changes cost money. I give people an example of us doing some work in a garage, and the customer wanted to buy a Tesla a year later, a year after the construction. So we put in a 50 amp charger or 50 amp power plug in the garage. It cost about $400 to put that plug in the garage while the garage was being built. If you try to do it in a garage now that's already built, it costs you about $3,000. So if you're building a garage or building an extension for your home and you're planning for these things, the earlier you plan for it, the cheaper it is. Once things are done and you try to make changes, things get more expensive. These are some of the recent projects that we have done. Of course, we do a whole bunch of things. We don't just build ADUs, we build entire homes. We do additions, we do remodels. We just finished a $3 million remodel, incredible custom finishes and all that. It's actually not in this list, but we've built a 4,000 square foot home in San Rafael. We built a 5,000 plus square foot home in Los Altos Hills. These are both from ground up. We've done condo upgrades in San Francisco. We've done multiple remodels. We've done multiple ADUs. The nearest ADU we've built to here, it was in San Bruno, and of course many other cities as well. So those are some of our recent projects, and these are some pictures of some of our ADUs. In this picture, this is an interesting one. This was the ADU in San Bruno. I picked this picture for a specific reason. In this part of San Bruno, there was a lot of packed land. There was a landfill at some point way back when. So the rock could not be found by the geotech engineer. The city knew that this land had been filled, and the city wanted the geotech engineer to offer a recommendation, and the geotech engineer's recommendation was the piers have to reach hard rock. And we kept drilling with that, and we had to drill 29 feet before we could hit rock. But that's what the geotech engineer wanted, otherwise the project could not move ahead. Fortunately, that doesn't happen in most of the cities. In Foster City, it may be the same situation. So you do that, you build your piers, you build a foundation, you build a subfloor, make the plumbing connections and electrical connections. These are utility connections. That's the gas pipe for this San Bruno property. This distance was about 200 feet, and the primary dwelling was here, and the ADU was just downhill. So this was a very challenging project which we did. That's the gas pipe, that's the electric pipe. And then when the framing package arrived, it was at this street, and we brought it here. This was stood up in about a day. And then of course we sealed it, windows, roof, doors and everything, drywall inside and all that, and this customer is very happy. They built it for their in-laws. Second ADU project is in South Bay. We built the foundation. The framing package was put together in about a day and a half. Very beautiful finishes in the bathroom. This customer wanted custom tile, so this tile was hand painted by a French artist, and we do what the customer wants. That's the outside of the ADU, and after the siding and the roof, it looks like that. We generally build these in 3 to 4 months. That's how fast we work. And an ADU, as you can see, is pretty much a full home built from the ground up, but it's smaller. That's the only difference. So why us? What's special about us? As Spenser said, we come from a technology world. We know how to solve problems. The technology world taught us to optimize, optimize, and optimize, and keep solving problems throughout the process. So we think like that. And what are the two key problems we're trying to solve? We are trying to keep saving money for our clients, and we keep trying to stick to schedule, because that's very important. I personally worked on billion-dollar projects for some of the biggest companies in the Bay Area, and sticking to schedules was very, very important, and that's the same discipline I bring with me to building ADUs or building entire homes. And then of course we pride ourselves in being a one-stop shop. That's why we have these other things such as ready-made plans for you to look at. We have a network of architects, civil engineers, structural engineers, geotech engineers. So we want to basically reduce risk at every step. So when we hand over your project to somebody, we want to make sure they're capable, we've worked with them before, they're predictable. That's how we reduce surprises. The goal is to reduce surprises and deliver on time and on budget. The other thing we do, which is quite unusual, I think, because we looked at why contractors have a bad rap, right? I think we'll all agree that most people have had a bad experience with contractors. So we sat down and said, why have people had bad experiences with contractors? And we eliminated each one of those issues. So another one is, we don't charge you markup on material. A contractor may buy something and charge you a markup of 30 to 40%. By the time you get it, it becomes more expensive. We don't do that. We take you to the best place where we can find the best pricing, highest quality, and we take you in front of that vendor and we say, here it is, here's the price, and if I get a discount as a general contractor, I give you my discount, so you get all the discounts that I would get. It's all very transparent. You don't pay me, you pay the retailer directly. That's one way we save you money. On materials, we charge no markups. The other thing we do, which is very unusual, which I don't think anyone else does, I've not seen any other contractor do that. When we are doing something, when we're building for you, we don't come and ask you for checks every week or every other week. We don't operate like that. What we do is we wait till a city inspection happens, and after that inspection, we ask you for payment. So if our work is not good enough to be inspected by the city, we don't get paid. If we don't perform, we don't get paid. That's a very, very different way of operating, because we're not asking you for money every week or every 2 weeks. So when you talk to a contractor, ask them that. You ask them, will you hold your invoices till you have a city inspection, and then you give me an invoice, and see how they respond. We have enough confidence in our quality and our delivery that if we don't perform, we don't get paid. So as I said, we reduce risk at every single step by working with our proven network, by working with proven processes, and that's why we're able to build these ADUs so quickly. And we want to make sure, of course, that it's a good experience. You know, if one thing drives me, why did I leave the technology world? Why am I doing this full time? What drives me is customer obsession. I'm obsessed about what my customers want, and I want to deliver to the very highest level of quality. That's what drives us. So as part of it, we make it a good experience for our customers, and we make sure. The other thing we do differently is our customers want references. We take them to our job sites. We do tours of our ADUs while they're being built. Sometimes the customers also come and meet our potential clients. Nothing is hidden, and our potential clients get to see how happy our customers are. So all that basically shows how we operate and how we think of our customers. And then finally, in order to reduce surprises, anything that needs to be done, we get written approvals up front. It mentions the date, the price, the cost, all that good stuff, and the scope of the work. So we're not giving any surprises to you. We hate surprises as much as you do. So everything is very, very clear, very legit. Also, if you check our records with the Contractor State Licensing Board, not a single complaint against us. We run our business very, very cleanly. So, and of course, no record against us in the court system as well. A lot of contractors speak a good game, but when you look at their court records or records with the State Licensing Board, you see there are all kinds of issues. In our case, there's none of that. So with that, in terms of next steps, we'll be happy to discuss your project with you. We'll be happy to share some of our designs with you that will fit your lot, that will fit your city requirements. We can help you get started with your project. And if you need any referrals to funding sources, we can also do that. And of course, we can invite you to tour one of our ADUs during construction. Question?
Can we go back to your estimates way back in the beginning of
Yes.
cost per square foot? I had just some general questions about that.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. I want to make sure I understand the framing of what you're estimating. Obviously, this is not
We're
exact
talking about
price.
this? Sure. This slide.
Further back. I'm sorry, the one that had the three different versions. Next.
This one.
That one.
Yes.
Okay. So on your project price range, that window is for what level of completed construction?
Sure. This is for turnkey completion, and this is not our price. This is what people are charging in the Bay Area. This is for a completed project.
That would be completed structure, no appliances, or with appliances?
It could include appliances if, when we do this, our cost includes appliances. Somebody who may be charging this much may not include appliances.
So for your company, you're saying that window of price range per square foot would include major appliances?
Yes.
Okay.
Not major appliances, but all appliances.
All appliances.
In an ADU, you can expect to have a stackable washer-dryer system. You can expect to have a cooking range, a refrigerator, a dishwasher. We include all of that. And in HVAC, if you want an HVAC.
So just short of furniture?
Exactly, just short of furniture.
Thank you. Okay.
Sure.
That was the question.
There's a question in the back.
So if the ADU is built within the structure, let's say you have a full basement in your home and you're going to convert the basement into an ADU, is there a requirement for separate metering, or can it be, does it have to be separately metered?
We have not, did everyone understand the question? Yeah.
Can you repeat it though?
Sure. The question is, and please correct me if I understood you correctly, the question was, if you convert a basement into an ADU, is there a requirement for separate meters, separate utility meters, right?
That was right.
The answer is, in all the cities where I've built ADUs, I have not come across a requirement for separate meters. The requirement does not come from the city, it comes from the customer. Some customers want separate meters. And even there you have choices. The choices are, let's say you want a separate electric meter. The choice you have is, would you work with PG&E to get a separate electric meter from PG&E? It's going to cost you $14,000 in a year and a half. In a year and a half, we would have built 4 ADUs and we would have moved on. Or would you buy a private electric meter, and that also gives you the same information as a PG&E meter would. It costs $250 and no extra time. So those are the choices you have, and we put both choices in front of you. Question?
Can you repeat that second choice? I didn't quite hear.
Yeah, you either get a meter from PG&E.
From PG&E?
Yep, you can get an electric meter, a private electric meter that's completely legal. You can put it in your electric connection. That electric meter will give you the same information as a PG&E meter. It'll cost you about $250.
So does that assess the usage in a specific area versus the rest of the house?
The specific area being the ADU.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep. So now you know how much to charge your renter for electricity. Similarly, you can have a gas meter. The water company is slightly easier to work with and cheaper to work with than PG&E, in my experience. Do we have a question?
Thank you. There are a couple of us here who live in San Mateo County, unincorporated San Mateo County. Two questions. One, do you know the setbacks in unincorporated San Mateo County, both from the side and the back fence? And do you work out on the coast, Half Moon Bay and north of there?
Yes, we work as far north as Daly City and South San Francisco. We work near Half Moon Bay as well. We've actually looked at investment projects near or in Half Moon Bay. San Mateo itself wants 5-foot setbacks, and the San Mateo County requirement, I don't know. But City of San Mateo wants 5-foot setbacks, but we can check and get back to you with the answer.
How about San Jose setbacks?
San Jose is a good one. San Jose setbacks used to be 5 feet for rear, 5 feet for the side. They've gone to 0 feet. So you can build your ADU right next to the fence with a caveat. The city wants a review by the fire department, and the fire department may want you to have 3 feet setbacks.
Hope so.
Yep. Any other questions? Question?
But if
Sorry.
some of my clients want to contact you, what's the best way?
We'll start with you having my business card. Question?
A question about the things like sidewalk requirement and fire sprinkler requirement.
That's a very interesting subject. Yeah. The question is, what are fire sprinkler requirements and fire code requirements? Let's be specific to a certain city because requirements are slightly different. In general, if you look at the state rules, and I can email you the exact document the state wrote, the state says you should not require, a city should not require fire sprinklers in an ADU. That's the starting point. Now, each city has their own rules. The city of San Jose, for example, says, or most cities say, if the primary dwelling has fire sprinklers, then your ADU must have fire sprinklers. So if the house has fire sprinklers, then the ADU must have fire sprinklers. The city of San Jose also says, if the primary dwelling does not have fire sprinklers, but the center of the ADU is more than 150 feet away from the nearest fire hydrant, then you need fire sprinklers. So we have a customer whose center of the ADU was 158 feet away from the nearest fire hydrant, and because of those extra 8 feet, he had to put fire sprinklers. So tell us which city, and we can check the rules for you for that city.
Do you happen to know off the top of your head, Pacifica?
I don't. I've looked at projects in Pacifica. I don't remember all the rules. I look at so many cities every day that I don't keep track of everything. But contact us offline. We'll let you know the rules. Do we have a question there? Good. Question?
So how does the budget really go? Like, are you able to offer a total price upfront, or is that every stage you like pay certain things, you buy stuff, and then you figure out?
Yeah, good question. We offer you, so again, there are hard costs and soft costs. Soft costs are the costs you pay for engineering, costs you pay for the city, costs you pay for the permits. We give you advice until then, but we are not getting any of that money. So the soft costs and the planning and building process and the permit process may take you 2 months, let's say. We haven't really done any work. We've been giving you advice, but the construction hasn't started yet, and you've given those monies to engineers or the city. The hard cost, the construction cost, is when we come in, we give you a contract, a full estimate, one number that has everything. I can show you some examples. And then once we start construction, each time we do something, let's say we build foundations. I showed you a picture of foundations. Once we've completed the foundation, they've been inspected, then we send you an invoice for the foundation. The other thing we do is we don't ask for deposits. A lot of contractors will ask you for 50% of the money up front as a deposit. We don't ask for deposits. Another way, we work very differently. So we can't really steal your money and run away because we never have your money in our project. We are putting our money in the project. Once the inspection happens, then we send you an invoice, but we can't run away with any money. right? So these are other areas where we are very different. So to review my answer to you, we give you one budget for construction, that's one number, and as the project completes, we draw upon that number until it gets to 0, right? Straightforward, very transparent. Any other questions? Question?
I'm in an older neighborhood, and when you talk about setbacks, how do you define the property line? Do you require that we get something defined first?
Good question. The question is, I live in an older neighborhood, how do you define property lines? The property line determines the setback. We can do a survey for you. We can bring in a surveyor and do a survey for you. Or in some cases, if the remnants of the fence are there, we can measure off the fence. Those are some things we can do. And if you and your neighbor agree on where the property line is, we can measure setbacks from there.
My understanding is that in the state of California, ADUs on wheels are not allowed due to the risk of earthquakes. I've talked to engineering friends who say there are workarounds for that. Do you see those laws loosening down the road?
I don't see those laws loosening at this time. Should I repeat the question? The question is, I've heard that in the state of California, they don't allow ADUs on wheels or tiny homes. They are also called tiny homes on wheels. When I talk to city governments, I do know that the rules are tiny homes on wheels are considered temporary structures, and a city does not want you to have temporary structures in a permanent fashion. If that would be allowed, you'll have 18 ADUs on each lot. And the city does not want that. It's also a fire hazard. It has its own sets of issues. So they want one permanent structure. Here's an interesting quiz. There are three things that are common to each city. First one is occupancy. The cities want you living in either the ADU or the primary dwelling. Which city does not require that? San Jose. The quick answer is San Jose. Second one is, the common rule about cities is 1 ADU per lot. There is a city nearby that allows you 2 ADUs per lot. Which city is that? No, not by any means. Portola Valley, if your lot is 3 acres or greater, they allow you 2 ADUs per lot. Yep. Good, I thought I'd leave you with that. If you have more questions, my time is probably up. If you have more questions, please reach out to me offline, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. And I have my business card for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.